You're doing a normal grocery run, not preparing for anything. You reach for a can you've bought a dozen times without thinking, and there are two left on the shelf. You take one. Someone already took the other before you got there. You didn't miss it because you weren't paying attention. You missed it because you didn't know it was moving. I checked the supply data on 18 of these items. The shelves are getting thinner. And if Vienna sausages make this list, which they do right now at number 18, you're going to want to see what's sitting at number 1. Number 18, Vienna sausages. Go ahead and laugh. Most serious preppers do, and then they quietly buy them anyway, because Vienna sausages do something almost nothing else does. They require zero prep, fit inside a bug-out bag, and kids will actually eat them without complaint. 3 to 5 years on the shelf unopened, USDA inspected. Roughly 150 calories per 4 sausage serving. The high sodium content is doing double duty. It's preserving the protein and delivering the calories. Hormel and Libby's produce the bulk of U.S. volume, and canning line consolidation since 2020 has quietly reduced the SKU availability in smaller formats. Not a shortage, a thinning. Buy the pop-top format. Skip the generic store brand with no inspection stamp on the label. Number 17 is canned hominy, and if you've never bought it, that's exactly the problem. Hominy is corn treated with lye, a process called nixtamalization that's been documented for over 400 years in Mexican and Southwestern American cooking. That process does something remarkable. It chemically alters the starch structure, releases niacin that would otherwise be locked in the grain, and increases the calcium content. What you get is a canned product that stores 3 to 5 years and delivers nutrients that plain canned corn simply cannot. It's the base for pozole. It's a thickener for soups. It predates canning as a survival food by centuries. Juanita's, Bush's, and Margaret Holmes are the names to look for. The 29-ounce can gives you better value per calorie. And right now, shelf gaps in Midwest and Southeast chains are real and getting more frequent. Number 16, canned artichoke hearts. This one surprises people. Over 99% of U.S. artichoke production comes from a single county, Monterey County, California, centered around Castroville. One drought cycle, one logistics disruption, one bad season in that corridor, and there is no domestic backup supply. Imported product from Spain and Peru exists, but it doesn't always fill the gap on time. What you get nutritionally is one of the highest fiber canned vegetables available, about 7 grams of fiber per half cup, which matters in emergency contexts where gut health deteriorates fast on limited, repetitive diets. Buy water pack, not marinated. The marinated version adds oil that degrades faster after opening and shortens the practical shelf life once you crack the can. Number 15 is canned sweet potato, and this one is quietly one of the most important items on this list that almost nobody is stockpiling. Sweet potato production in the U.S. is concentrated in North Carolina, roughly 60% of domestic supply. Hurricane season, drought, or soil disease like the Fusarium wilt outbreaks can collapse a significant portion of national supply in a single season. And here's the structural problem. Canned sweet potato is a processed season product. What gets canned in fall is what sits on shelves through the following summer. There is no mid-year correction. One bad North Carolina harvest, and the shelves stay thin for months. The nutritional case is extraordinary. Over 200% of your daily vitamin A requirement per half cup from beta-carotene that remains bioavailable through canning. Puree format stores more compactly. Cube format is more versatile for cooking. Check for BPA-free lining on newer inventory. Number 14, canned clams. Most people don't think of canned clams as a prepper item. That's a mistake. Snow's and Bumblebee chopped clams deliver around 5 grams of protein per 2-ounce serving at roughly 30 calories, one of the leanest protein sources in the canned aisle. But the iron content is the real story. Canned clams are among the highest dietary iron sources available in a shelf-stable format, alongside B12 and selenium that are genuinely difficult to replace when supply chains compress. Here's the supply vulnerability most people don't know about. Red tide events, harmful algal blooms, can shut down entire clam harvesting regions with almost no warning. The FDA monitors shellfish harvesting beds, and when a region gets flagged, the supply chain interruption is immediate and can last months. The Gulf of Maine and Long Island Sound have both produced documented shelf gaps during major red tide events. The clam juice in the can is usable as a sodium electrolyte broth. Buy chopped, not whole. Better value, better utility. And check the packed by date. Newer inventory is preferred for shellfish products. Number 13 is canned black beans, and here's where the familiar gets uncomfortable. You probably already buy these. The shelf looks full most of the time. But the inventory data tells a different story. Brazil is the world's largest black bean producer. U.S. domestic production is concentrated in Michigan and North Dakota, and tariff exposure plus logistics disruptions have been thinning specific SKUs in specific markets since 2023. Goya, Bush's, store brand lines all showed inventory variance. The canned version gives you 7.5 grams of protein and 7.5 grams of fiber per half cup. Edible cold, straight from the can. No heat required. Buy the 15-ounce can in a 6-pack format for better unit economics. And if blood pressure management matters in your household, the low-sodium version is available. Look for it specifically. Number 12, canned chickpeas. The hummus market tripled between 2010 and 2023. The plant-based protein sector is still growing. What that means in practical terms is that global demand for chickpeas has outrun domestic production capacity. U.S. supply is concentrated in Montana and Washington state, and drought conditions hit both 2022 and 2023 crops hard. Import from India and Canada exists, but carries its own tariff and geopolitical exposure. What you're storing here is about 120 calories per half cup, 6 grams of protein, 5 grams of fiber, and one of the best calorie per dollar values in the canned legume category. One thing most people throw away, the aquafaba, the liquid in the can. It's a functional cooking binder. Don't discard it. Number 11 is canned whole tomatoes, and this is the one most of you already have in your pantry, which is exactly why this entry matters. Over 90% of U.S. canned tomato production runs through California's Central Valley. Muir Glen, Hunts, Contadina, Del Monte, all of them. The 2021 through 2022 California drought dropped tomato processing volumes significantly. A single bad California season doesn't show up on shelves immediately. It takes 12 to 18 months to work through the supply chain. By the time you see the gap, the correction window has already closed. The acidity of tomatoes, pH below 4.6, is what makes them self-preserving. Quality degrades after 18 months to 2 years, but the safety window extends to 3 to 5 years in proper storage. Buy whole peeled. It's the most versatile format. You can break them down into any other form. Check for dents at the seam before storing. If budget allows, San Marzano DOP is the highest quality option. Number 10, canned coconut milk. There is not a single coconut grown commercially in the continental United States. Every can of coconut milk on your shelf came from Thailand, the Philippines, or a handful of other Southeast Asian sources. Chaoco, Thai Kitchen, Arroy D. All of them travel the same supply chain. El Niño patterns, cyclone seasons, port logistics disruptions in Southeast Asia. Any of those variables directly affect U.S. shelf availability with no domestic buffer to absorb the shock. Full-fat canned coconut milk delivers roughly 225 calories per half cup, predominantly from medium-chain fatty acids, MCTs, that resist oxidation significantly better than long-chain fats. This is calorie-dense, shelf-stable, dairy-free fuel. Buy full fat only. The light version sacrifices the value. Look for BPA-free lining. Shake before opening. The fat separates in storage. Number 9. Canned evaporated milk. Most people don't stockpile dairy because they don't think it's possible. This corrects that assumption. The evaporation process removes 60% of the water content, concentrating the protein and fat, and dramatically reducing the microbial growth medium that causes fresh dairy to spoil. What you're left with is a shelf-stable product that provides 8.5 grams of protein and around 170 calories per half cup, with calcium, phosphorus, and vitamin D, if it's fortified. Carnation is the dominant brand. The 2021 through 2022 infant formula crisis created documented out-of-stock events for evaporated milk SKUs as consumers shifted to alternate dairy formats, which tells you exactly how quickly this category disappears under pressure. Buy whole milk format for maximum calorie density. And do not confuse this with sweetened condensed milk. That's a different product, much higher sugar, limited utility for savory preparation. Number 8. Canned anchovies. This is where the list shifts into territory most people aren't expecting. A single 2-ounce tin of anchovies dissolved into olive oil can season an entire pot of food. The flavor utility per square inch of shelf space is extraordinary, but the supply story is the real reason preppers are buying these. The Bay of Biscay anchovy fishery, running between Spain and France, is actively quota managed, and those quotas have been cut repeatedly as biomass assessments have declined. Cantabrian anchovies, the highest quality on the market, are already at premium prices with documented scarcity. Peruvian anchoveta, which supplies lower-grade product, faces El Niño-driven biomass crashes. The preservation science is layered. Salt cure plus oil immersion gives you multiple barriers against spoilage, making these one of the most stable animal proteins in a can. Omega-3 density per gram is among the highest of any food. Oil-packed over salt-packed for storage. Ortiz and Agostino Recca if you want premium. Roland and King Oscar hold up at mid-range. Number 7 is canned oysters, and if you've ever dismissed them as a specialty item, reconsider. A 3-ounce serving can deliver over 500% of your daily zinc requirement, and zinc is not optional in a prolonged emergency context. Immune function, wound healing, protein synthesis, zinc is doing critical work. The supply problem here isn't quotas or trade policy, it's chemistry. Pacific oyster production out of Washington State and British Columbia has been structurally damaged by ocean acidification. Rising CO2 dissolves the carbonate ions that oyster larvae need to form shells. Whiskey Creek Shellfish Hatchery, one of the largest Pacific Coast operations, documented mass larval die-offs across the 2000s and 2010s. Production has partially stabilized, but the structural vulnerability is ongoing. Wild harvest supply is not recovering at commercial scale. Crown Prince in spring water is the cleanest option. Smoked oysters are valid for storage, but carry wood smoke preservatives. Factor that in if you're sensitive to additives. Number 6, canned pumpkin. This is the supply story that stops most people cold when they hear it the first time. Libby's, a Nestlé subsidiary, controls approximately 85% of U.S. canned pumpkin supply. They grow their proprietary Dickinson pumpkin variety in Morton, Illinois, and process it through a single facility in a single county. That's it. That's the entire supply chain for most of the canned pumpkin in America. In 2009, a wet Illinois summer caused a national canned pumpkin shortage that lasted into 2010. Every other brand on the shelf, combined, holds less than 15% of the market. And some of that store brand pumpkin is co-packed from the same Libby's source anyway. Nutritionally, this is a half cup of food that delivers over 200% of your daily vitamin A, 3.5 grams of fiber, potassium, and vitamin C at about 45 calories. It thickens soups, works in savory dishes, functions in baked goods when flour is available. Stock the 15-ounce can, better for rotation than the 29-ounce. And read the label, 100% pure pumpkin only, not pumpkin pie mix. Number 5 is canned albacore tuna. Most people buying tuna don't know the difference between albacore and skipjack. That's the gap this entry closes. Albacore is the white tuna species, higher omega-3 content, and a different supply chain, assessed separately by the Western and Central Pacific Fisheries Commission. Changing ocean temperatures are shifting albacore migration patterns. International fleet competition is increasing. Processing capacity has contracted. Bumblebee filed for Chapter 11 in 2019. StarKist paid a $100 million antitrust fine that same year, and industry consolidation has reduced the number of active canning facilities. When disruption hits this category, the shelf gap is immediate and broad. You're looking at 20 to 25 grams of protein per 3-ounce serving at around 110 calories, water-packed. Buy albacore specifically, not light tuna. Wild Planet and Safe Catch offer pole and line sourcing with mercury monitoring. Check the seam for dents before storing. Number 4. Canned wild Alaskan salmon. Here's the distinction that changes how you think about supply chains. Wild salmon cannot be farmed at commercial canned product scale. There is no factory that can ramp up production when demand spikes. The harvest is what it is. No AA sets annual catch limits based on stock assessments, and that number is the ceiling. The 2022 Bristol Bay sockeye season was a record run, and processing capacity still couldn't keep pace. Product lagged on shelves for months after one of the strongest wild salmon years on record. Nutritionally, this is arguably the most complete canned protein available. 17 grams of protein per 3-ounce serving, the highest EPA and DHA omega-3 content of any commonly available canned protein, calcium from the edible soft bones, and vitamin D, one of the few genuine non-perishable food sources of it. Buy sockeye over pink for omega-3 density and flavor. Wild Planet and Vital Choice are the premium options. If you're buying store brand, verify wild caught and Alaskan specifically. Pacific without Alaskan can include farmed product. Number 3 is canned corned beef, and this entry introduces a supply risk that doesn't appear anywhere else on this list. The United States does not produce canned corned beef at commercial scale domestically. Libby's, the dominant brand, is processed in Brazil and Argentina. Argentina's own government has restricted beef exports multiple times in the last decade, specifically to manage domestic inflation. That's a foreign government's internal economic policy determining whether this product sits on your shelf. Tariff exposure on South American beef imports adds a second layer of fragility completely outside of agricultural control. The 2020 and 2021 shelf shortages lasted months. 3 to 5 years shelf life, thanks to brine curing plus heat sterilization. Roughly 210 calories per 3-ounce serving, 15 grams of protein, 16 grams of fat. One of the genuinely calorie-dense canned proteins, not lean like tuna or chicken. Verify the pull tab is intact before storing. Palm brand, Philippine-produced, is the viable alternative if Libby's is unavailable. Number 2, canned chicken. You already saw this happen. In 2020, canned chicken, Swanson specifically, went on indefinite out of stock at major retailers and stayed that way through much of 2021. Canning facilities are more labor-intensive per unit than fresh-cut processing, and when COVID-19 labor shortages hit, the canning lines shut faster. The shelves came back, but the prepper community's purchasing behavior did not return to pre-2020 patterns. The people who know are still buying canned chicken in volume, which means the buffer for everyone else is permanently thinner than it looks. 26 grams of protein per 3-ounce serving, arguably the highest protein-to-calorie ratio of any canned food. Works in everything: sandwiches, pasta, soups, tacos, casseroles. No resistance from picky eaters. Kirkland at Costco in the 12-pack is the best unit cost option available. Valley Fresh is the best mid-market alternative to Swanson. Check the ingredient list. Mechanically separated chicken is a downgrade you don't want in your stockpile. Number 1 is canned sardines, and if you've made it this far, you've earned this one. Portuguese sardine catch volumes have dropped more than 50% since the 1990s. That's not a projection. That's documented data from the International Council for the Exploration of the Sea. The EU has cut Atlantic sardine quotas repeatedly. The Portuguese government declared sardine quotas at near-crisis levels in both 2016 and 2018. The Spanish Cantabrian harvest faces the same pressure. Combined Iberian Peninsula sardine output is a fraction of what it was historically. Wild Planet, Season, Bella, King Oscar, all of them sourced from these same European and Moroccan fisheries. Moroccan production exists as a partial buffer, but Moroccan sardine quotas are also under pressure. In 2023 and 2024, Wild Planet sardines were documented as backordered on Amazon and in specialty natural food retailers for extended periods. This is not a pandemic disruption. There is no recovery mechanism in sight. What you're storing when you buy sardines is approximately 23 grams of protein per 3.75-ounce can, the highest EPA and DHA, omega-3 density of any commonly available food by weight, calcium from edible bones, vitamin D, selenium, and iron. A full-spectrum nutritional profile in the smallest possible package. The oil in the can is usable. The bones are edible. Portuguese and Spanish sardines have been commercially canned since the 1800s. There is documented evidence, and a cottage industry among tinned fish enthusiasts, that quality actually improves in the first 3 to 4 years of storage. Olive oil packed only, not soybean, not sunflower. Olive oil is more stable, and it adds value to the can even after the fish is gone. Wild Planet, Season, King Oscar, Bela. Those are your brands. Cool, dark, below 70 degrees Fahrenheit. The small oval pull-top cans stack flat. They are space efficient in ways that almost no other canned item matches.